Sir, step out. Random and hand screening.
Officer, I just landed. I'm catching my connecting screen.
Didn't ask. Military ID, now.
Staff Sergeant Thompson, just back from...
Anyone can buy that on Amazon. Stolen valor cases everywhere.
This is active duty. I can show
Turn
you.
around. Hands behind your back, now.
Hey, I'm recording.
Look,
Officer
I'm cooperating.
Martinez had a pattern in Terminal C, stopping people with confidence, speaking over them, pressing situations until they bent, knowing most travelers wanted nothing more than to leave the airport without trouble or delay. That morning, Sergeant Major Thompson had just returned from 11 months in an undisclosed combat zone. He was still in his deployment uniform, rushing to catch his flight to Denver. There was only one thing he focused on, which was reaching the hospital before his son went under anesthesia. Before I continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever been dismissed by someone who had no idea who they were dealing with? Drop your answer in the comments. Now let's proceed. Elias Thompson was 34 years old, grew up in South Chicago, and was first in his family to join the military in 2017. He became a Delta Force operator, and for over the past 9 years, he completed 14 classified missions, served in Syria, Afghanistan, and Yemen. He'd also operated in places the government still refuses to acknowledge exist. He earned 4 Silver Stars, 3 Purple Hearts, decorations that most soldiers never see in 3 lifetimes. But here's something Officer Martinez had no idea of. Thompson had a direct line saved in his phone to the National Security Council. At the moment Martinez tackled him, Thompson was on an active call with the White House Chief of Staff, coordinating his emergency family leave. The line was open, and the Chief of Staff heard everything that was going on. Sergeant Major Thompson's work was so sensitive that when he traveled, the Pentagon Operations Center was notified of his location every 6 hours. Watch this. Martinez said to his partner, Remington Love, nodding toward Thompson. Another fake. Probably bought that uniform at a surplus store. Love glanced up from his tablet. Thompson was so excited he was moving fast, but Love hesitated. Something about the way the man carried himself didn't fit Martinez's usual targets. But Martinez was already stepping directly into Thompson's path with his hand raised. Thompson stopped. His eyes flicked to Martinez, then passed him toward the departure gate. He kept the phone pressed to his ear. On the other end of the line, the White House Chief of Staff was still talking. "Excuse me, sir." Martinez planted himself directly in Thompson's path, arms crossed. "Where did you buy that costume?" Thompson's eyes narrowed. He lowered the phone slightly, but didn't end the call. "Officer, I need to get to gate 52. My flight boards in 20 minutes. Asked you a question." Martinez stepped closer, invading Thompson's space. "That's a military uniform. Where did you get it?" Thompson's voice remained calm, controlled. "I'm active duty Army. Sergeant Major Elias Thompson. I just flew in from overseas, and I have a connecting flight to catch." "Yeah." Martinez smirked. "Funny. Sergeant Major don't wear Delta patches. You wouldn't believe how many guys like you I catch every week. Buying uniforms online, pretending to be heroes." He turned to Love, who had moved closer, looking uncomfortable. "Love, call in. We got another one." Thompson took a slow breath. On the phone, he could hear the White House Chief of Staff asking what was happening. He didn't answer. Instead, he shifted his tactical backpack and reached for his wallet with deliberate, visible movements. "Officer, I'm going to show you my military ID. It's in my right cargo pocket." "Oh, this should be good," Martinez said, loud enough for the growing crowd of onlookers to hear. A woman in business attire had stopped walking. A man in glasses was already holding up his phone. Jesse Banks, standing near the charging station, recognized the tension building and opened his streaming app. Thompson pulled out a black leather wallet and extracted his military identification card. It wasn't a standard ID. The card was reinforced, embedded with security features most officers would never recognize. He held it out to Martinez. Martinez snatched it from his hand, glanced at it for less than 2 seconds, then tossed it onto the floor. The card skidded across the polished tile and stopped near a trash can. "That's fake. You could buy those on eBay for $15. Thompson's jaw tightened. For the first time, his composure cracked just slightly. His son's surgery was in 4 hours. He'd survived firefights in 3 countries. He'd pulled diplomats out of collapsing safe houses. He'd done things that would never appear in any public record. And now he was standing in an airport terminal, watching a TSA officer throw his credentials on the ground like garbage. "Officer Martinez," Thompson said quietly, "I need you to pick that up and scan it in your system. That card has a chip. It will verify who I am." Martinez laughed. "I don't need to scan anything. I know stolen valor when I see it. Now turn around, put your hands behind your back, or I'll put you on the ground myself." Thompson glanced at his phone. The call timer was still running. The chief of staff was hearing every word. He looked back at Martinez, then at the departure gate in the distance. Gate 52. His flight. His son. He made a decision. "I'm not doing this," Thompson said. He bent down, picked up his ID, and turned to walk away. That's when Martinez made his fatal mistake. "Stop right there," Martinez shouted. Thompson kept walking. Martinez reached for his radio, then changed his mind. He wanted this takedown. He wanted the crowd to see him subdue a faker. He lunged forward and drove his shoulder into Thompson's back, wrapping both arms around his torso and driving him toward the ground. Thompson's phone flew from his hand and clattered across the floor. The screen facing up, the call still connected. His tactical backpack absorbed some of the impact, but his chest hit the tile hard. The air rushed from his lungs. For a split second, every instinct in his body screamed at him to fight back. He could have reversed the position in 2 movements. He could have put Martinez on his back in 3 seconds. But he didn't. Instead, he went completely still. He turned his head to the side, eyes open, breathing controlled. He placed his hands flat on the floor, palms down, fingers spread. Non-threatening. Compliant. Controlled. "Stop resisting," Martinez yelled, even though Thompson wasn't moving. Love finally stepped forward. "Martinez, maybe we should just—" "Get back, Love. I got this." The crowd had grown. 8 people now. 9. Jesse Banks was live-streaming, his phone held high, his viewer count climbing. The congressional aide was recording on her phone, her face pale. A businessman had stopped mid-stride, his mouth open. A mother pulled her child closer. Martinez wrenched Thompson's right arm behind his back. Thompson didn't resist. Martinez grabbed the left arm. Thompson let him. The cold steel of handcuffs bit into Thompson's wrists. On the floor, 5 feet away, Thompson's phone lay face up. The call timer still running. 18 minutes, 42 seconds. On the other end of that call, in a secure office in Washington, D.C., the White House chief of staff sat frozen at his desk, his own phone pressed to his ear, listening to the sounds of a decorated Delta Force operator being handcuffed on an airport floor. He reached for his second phone and dialed a number that only 12 people in the country had access to. It rang once. "This is Director Schwartz." "Nelson, this is the White House. We have a situation at your airport. You need to get to Terminal C, Gate 47, right now." "Oh my God, did you see that?" A woman's voice cut through the terminal. "He just tackled him for no reason." Jesse Banks adjusted his phone, making sure the frame captured everything. His screen showed 847 viewers, then 1,203, then 2,891. The numbers were climbing fast. He read the comments flooding in, his voice steady, practiced. "Chat is saying that's a real Delta Force patch," Jesse said into his phone. "Someone just dropped a link to military insignia regulations. Guys, I think that officer just made a huge mistake." A businessman in a gray suit moved closer, his own phone out. "This is insane. That guy wasn't doing anything wrong." The mother who'd pulled her child back now had her phone up too. The congressional aide, a young woman named Sarah Chun, was already typing frantically on her phone, texting her boss. She'd worked in Washington long enough to recognize the quiet intensity of someone who operated in classified spaces. She'd seen that same look on the faces of Secret Service agents, on diplomatic security officers, on the kind of people who didn't appear in org charts. Martinez hauled Thompson to his feet, gripping his arm. Thompson's face remained calm, almost expressionless, but his eyes tracked to his phone on the floor. The screen was still lit. The call timer read 19 minutes, 17 seconds. "You're under arrest for impersonating a military officer," Martinez announced loudly, playing to the crowd. "Stolen valor is a federal crime." "Officer, you need to scan his ID," Love said quietly, his voice tight. "Just scan it. Let's make sure before we. I don't need to scan anything. Martinez snapped. I know what I'm doing. Jesse's viewer count hit 12,000. The comments were coming too fast to read now, but he caught fragments. Call the cops. That's assault. Someone get his badge number. The patch is real. I served with Delta. That's legit. Yo, chat is losing it, Jesse said into his camera. We're at 15,000 viewers. Someone just said they're calling the FBI tip line. 5 feet away, Thompson's phone continued transmitting. The chief of staff had muted his end, but he was listening, recording, and making calls. His assistant was already on another line with the Pentagon's Joint Operations Center. A third call was going out to the Secretary of Defense's office. This wasn't just a random soldier being harassed. This was a Tier 1 operator with an active security clearance so high that his travel movements were tracked in real time. In the airport director's office, 3 terminals away, Nelson Schwartz grabbed his radio and ran. He didn't wait for the elevator. He hit the stairwell at a sprint, his security chief and 2 airport police officers right behind him. His phone was still pressed to his ear. How long ago did this happen? Schwartz demanded, his breath coming hard as he took the stairs 2 at a time. 90 seconds, the chief of staff said. We have audio of the entire incident. Your officer just tackled a Delta Force operator who's on emergency family leave. His son is in surgery prep right now. Schwartz felt his stomach drop. What's the officer's name? Martinez. Badge number 4738. Schwartz's face went white. Martinez. Of course it was Martinez. He'd had complaints about him before. Excessive force. Harassment. Power trips. But Martinez had always managed to stay just inside the boundaries, just clean enough to avoid real consequences. Not this time. I'm 2 minutes out, Schwartz said. Do not let that officer leave the terminal. He burst through the stairwell door into Terminal C's main concourse. Gate 47 was visible in the distance. He could see the crowd. 20 people now, maybe more. Phones everywhere. He keyed his radio. All units, Terminal C, Gate 47. Code red. Director responding. Lock down that area. No one leaves. His security chief, a former Marine named Patterson, was keeping pace beside him. Sir, what are we walking into? A career-ending disaster, Schwartz said. They closed the distance fast. Schwartz could see Martinez now, standing over Thompson with his chest puffed out, soaking in what he thought was a righteous arrest. He could see Love standing off to the side, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. He could see the phones, the cameras, the faces of travelers who'd stopped to watch. And then he saw Thompson, handcuffed, kneeling, calm. But his uniform told the story Martinez had been too arrogant to read. The combat were patterns on the sleeves. The faded spots where dust had worked into the fabric over months. The way the boots were scuffed in specific places, the kind of scuffing that didn't come from weekend drill, but from real operational tempo. The Delta Force patch that wasn't some costume shop replica, but the real thing, properly positioned, properly worn. Schwartz's radio crackled. Director, we're getting calls from the Pentagon. They're asking about an incident involving one of their personnel. Sir, they're saying this is a priority alert situation. Jesse's stream hit 31,000 viewers. Someone in the chat had identified Thompson by his name tape and cross-referenced it with public military records. The comments were savage now. That officer is done. Martinez just ended his career. The White House is probably already on the phone. This is going to be national news in an hour. Schwartz was 20 feet away now. Martinez saw him coming and straightened up, looking confused. Thompson's eyes tracked to Schwartz, then to the 3 airport police officers behind him, then back to his phone on the floor. The call timer read 23 minutes, 8 seconds. Schwartz stopped directly in front of Martinez, his face hard, his voice low and controlled. Officer Martinez, step away from that man right now. Release him. That is a direct order from the POTUS. Martinez blinked. His hand was still gripping Thompson's arm. His brain struggled to process what he'd just heard. Sir, I said release him, Martinez. Remove those handcuffs right now. Schwartz's voice was ice. His face had gone red from the sprint, but his eyes were focused, deadly serious. Director, this man is impersonating a soldier. I caught him with a fake uniform and Remove the handcuffs. Now, Martinez's confidence faltered. He'd never seen Schwartz like this. The director ran a busy airport with thousands of staff, but right now, Schwartz looked like he was barely containing his rage. Martinez fumbled for his handcuff key, his hands suddenly clumsy. He unlocked the cuffs and stepped back. Thompson stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. He didn't say anything. He just watched Martinez with those same calm, patient eyes. "Director, I don't understand," Martinez said, his voice rising. "This guy is clearly the president," Martinez repeated, his voice cracking slightly. "Sir, I think there's been some kind of mistake. I was just doing my job. This is a stolen valor case. I've seen dozens of—" Schwartz cut him off. "Where's his phone?" Love pointed to the floor. "It's over there, sir." Schwartz walked over and picked it up carefully, as if it were evidence at a crime scene. The screen showed an active call. 24 minutes, 41 seconds. He looked at the screen, then at Thompson. Thompson gave a single, slight nod. Schwartz put the phone on speaker. "This is Airport Director Nelson Schwartz. To whom am I speaking?" The voice that came through the speaker was calm, professional, and carried the unmistakable weight of authority. "Director Schwartz, this is Robert Hammond, White House Chief of Staff. I've been on the line with Sergeant Major Thompson for the past 25 minutes. I heard everything." The color drained from Martinez's face. The crowd had gone completely silent. Jesse's livestream viewer count hit 47,000. He held his phone steady, making sure the audio was clear. This was the moment. This was the content that would go viral in every corner of the internet. "Mr. Hammond," Schwartz said carefully, "I apologize for this incident. We're handling it now. Director, I need you to understand something," Hammond continued, his voice measured but firm. "The man your officer just assaulted is a decorated Delta Force operator returning from 11 months of classified operations. He is currently on emergency family leave because his son is in pre-op for heart surgery. He should have been in the air 20 minutes ago. Instead, he's handcuffed on your terminal floor because one of your officers decided to play hero." Martinez took a step backward. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Furthermore," Hammond said, "this entire incident has been recorded by multiple civilians and is currently being live-streamed to over 50,000 viewers. I want that officer's badge. I want a full investigation into your airport security procedures. And I want Sergeant Major Thompson on the next available flight to Denver with a formal apology from your department. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, sir," Schwartz said. "Put Sergeant Major Thompson on the line, please." Schwartz handed the phone to Thompson. Thompson took it and walked a few steps away, his voice low. The conversation lasted 15 seconds. When he returned, he handed the phone back to Schwartz. "Mr. Hammond," Schwartz said, "we'll handle this immediately. See that you do. I'll be following up personally, Director. And you should know that the Secretary of Defense has been briefed. The Pentagon will be conducting its own review of this incident." The line went dead. Schwartz lowered the phone slowly. He turned to face Martinez. The airport security officers had formed a loose semicircle. Patterson, the security chief, moved closer to Martinez. Love had backed away, his face pale, clearly trying to distance himself from what was about to happen. "Martinez," Schwartz said quietly, "give me your badge." "Sir, please, I didn't know." "Your badge. Now." Martinez unclipped his badge with shaking hands and held it out. Schwartz took it and handed it to Patterson. Patterson placed Officer Martinez under arrest for assault, abuse of authority, and violation of federal protections for active duty military personnel. "What?" Martinez's voice was a strangled whisper. "You can't. I was doing my job. You tackled a decorated soldier based on nothing but your own arrogance," Schwartz said. "You ignored his credentials. You threw his military ID on the floor. You assaulted him in front of witnesses while he was on an emergency call with the White House. That's not doing your job, Martinez. That's ending your career." Patterson moved forward, pulling Martinez's hands behind his back. The same hands that had cuffed Thompson 5 minutes earlier. The handcuffs clicked shut. Martinez's shift supervisor, a senior officer named Williams who'd been watching from the edge of the crowd, stepped forward to assist. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Jesse's voice cut through the silence. Chad, are you seeing this? The officer who made the arrest just got arrested. We're at 62,000 viewers. This is insane. Sarah Chun, the congressional aide, was already on her phone again. This footage would be on every news network within the hour. The businessman in the gray suit was texting his wife. The mother was still recording, shaking her head in disbelief. Thompson stood perfectly still, watching it all unfold with the same quiet composure he'd maintained throughout the entire ordeal. His flight was gone. His son's surgery was starting in less than 4 hours. But justice, at least, was swift. Schwartz turned to Thompson. Sergeant Major, I apologize on behalf of this airport and every person who works here. We're going to get you to Denver. I have a private charter being prepared right now. Thompson nodded once. Thank you, Director. I need to call my son. Of course. Schwartz gestured to Patterson. Get him to the VIP lounge. Whatever he needs. Martinez was led away in handcuffs, his head down, his career over. Love stood frozen, knowing his own future at the airport was now in serious question. The crowd slowly began to disperse, but the phone stayed up, recording, streaming, posting. The fallout had only just begun. Patterson escorted Thompson through a private corridor away from the main terminal. They moved quickly, Thompson's boots echoing on the polished floor. His jaw was set, his eyes focused. Every second mattered now. Schwartz walked alongside them, his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating. The charter is fueled and ready at the private aviation terminal, Schwartz said, lowering his phone. We'll have you wheels up in 12 minutes. Flight time to Denver is 2 hours, 18 minutes. Your son's surgery is in 3 hours, 40 minutes. You'll make it. Thompson nodded, his voice tight. Thank you. They reached the VIP lounge. A sleek black SUV was waiting at the private exit, engine running. Thompson climbed in. The vehicle pulled away from the terminal, cutting across the tarmac toward a waiting Gulfstream G550. The jet's engines were already spooling up. Thompson was airborne 7 minutes later. He sat alone in the cabin, his phone to his ear, talking quietly to his ex-wife. She was at the hospital with their son. The boy was scared but stable. The surgical team was prepping the oar. Thompson closed his eyes and leaned back against the leather seat, finally allowing himself to breathe. Behind him, in Terminal C, the storm was just beginning. Jesse Banks ended his live stream after 97 minutes. His final viewer count was 89,000. Within 20 minutes, clips from his stream were uploaded to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. By the time Thompson's jet touched down in Denver, the video had been viewed 8 million times. By midnight, it hit 24 million. Within 72 hours, it crossed 50 million views across all platforms. The video showed everything. Martinez blocking Thompson, the ID being thrown on the floor, the tackle, the handcuffs, the crowd's reaction, Schwartz's arrival, the phone call with the White House Chief of Staff, Martinez being arrested by his own supervisor. Every frame was damning. News networks picked it up. CNN ran it as breaking news. Fox ran a segment titled Airport Security Gone Wrong. MSNBC brought on a retired general who identified Thompson's unit patches and confirmed his credentials were authentic. The hashtag Justice for Thompson trended for 4 days straight. But the viral video was only the beginning. The Secretary of Defense personally ordered a full audit of Detroit Metropolitan Airport Security Division. The team assigned to the investigation arrived within 48 hours. They pulled records, interviewed staff, reviewed body camera footage going back 3 years, and examined hundreds of incident reports filed by Martinez and his fellow officers. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Martinez hadn't been working alone. He'd built a network. 30 other officers, spread across 3 shifts, all participating in a scheme that had been running for nearly 4 years. They targeted passengers who looked vulnerable, travelers who seemed unlikely to fight back or hire lawyers. They planted evidence, fake contraband in luggage, small amounts of drugs in jacket pockets, unregistered items in carry-ons. Then they'd file reports, make arrests, and collect commendations for their vigilance. The victims were usually immigrants, elderly passengers, young travelers flying alone, people who wouldn't challenge the system, people who'd pay fines or accept plea deals rather than fight charges in court. Over 4 years, the group had filed 487 fraudulent reports. 43 people had been arrested. 17 had been deported. 9 had lost their jobs. 3 had served jail time for crimes they didn't commit. The investigation took 6 weeks. When the final report landed on Schwartz's desk, it was 340 pages long. He read it twice, then walked into his office, closed the door, and sat in silence for 20 minutes. The next morning, 31 badges were revoked. Martinez and his core group were terminated immediately. Criminal charges followed. Federal prosecutors built cases for evidence tampering, civil rights violations, conspiracy, and abuse of authority. Martinez, as the ringleader, faced the most serious charges. His trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. He was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. The other 30 officers faced varying sentences. Some took plea deals. Others went to trial. All of them lost their careers, their pensions, their reputations. The Detroit Airport Security Division was gutted and rebuilt from the ground up. Schwartz implemented new oversight protocols, mandatory body camera reviews, and an independent complaints board. The passengers who'd been wrongly accused began coming forward. Lawyers filed lawsuits. The airport settled most of them quietly, paying out millions in damages. 3 deportation cases were overturned. 2 people who'd served jail time had their records expunged. Jesse Banks gave interviews on morning shows, late-night programs, and podcasts. His follower count exploded. He started a foundation to help victims of law enforcement abuse. Sarah Chun, the congressional aide, wrote a report that led to new federal legislation protecting active duty service members from harassment during travel. Thompson made it to the hospital with 40 minutes to spare. He sat with his son until they wheeled him into surgery. The operation took 6 hours. It was successful. The boy recovered fully. 3 months later, Thompson returned to duty, cleared for active operations. 6 months after the incident, Thompson was called to Washington. He stood in a private ceremony at the Pentagon, surrounded by senior military leadership and members of the National Security Council. The Secretary of Defense pinned a medal on his uniform. Not for combat, not for classified missions in places the government wouldn't name, but for restraint, for discipline, for choosing control over violence when every instinct told him to fight back. The citation read, "For extraordinary composure under unlawful detention, upholding the highest standards of military professionalism in the face of injustice, and demonstrating that true strength lies not in the capacity for violence, but in the wisdom to withhold it." Thompson accepted the medal, saluted, and returned to his unit. He never gave a public interview. He never spoke about the incident outside official channels. When reporters tracked him down, he declined to comment. He'd done his job. The system had done its job. Justice had been served. Martinez's mugshot became a cautionary tale in law enforcement training programs across the country. The video of his arrest was shown in police academies with one simple lesson. Power without accountability is tyranny, and tyranny always falls. 31 careers destroyed. 1 soldier vindicated. In an airport that would never forget the day a TSA officer made the worst mistake of his life.